once again, it's wonderful to be here. And I'm going to maybe in a minute, I'm going to ask David if you could to put up that one uh, little photograph I sent you. But before that, I just want to tell you, it's kind of a funny joke, but it really is tied in, I think, too much, very much to the mystery of the resurrection and Easter time. There was a dog who was a talking dog, a dog that actually talks. And the man who owned it got rid of it. He got rid of his talking dog. He brought it to a place for abandoned dogs and got rid of it. And someone heard about this man getting rid of his talking dog. And he went to the place, the shelter where the dog was, and he met the dog, and the dog began to speak. And he said, "This is amazing. You're a dog and you can speak." He said, "Yes." He said, "I spent 3 years in the Alps helping people, the skiers." He said, "I saved a lot of lives." He said, "And after that, I spent 2 years in Iraq. I worked with a medical team and I truthfully saved a lot of people's lives there." He said, "Now I'm back here and I'm reading to the blind every day." The guy goes, "This is amazing. You're talking, you're talking." And so he leaves and he calls the owner of this dog and says, "How could you ever get rid of that dog? He talks perfectly." He goes, "Listen, I got rid of him because he's a liar and I don't believe anything he says." Well, I found that joke to be, I don't know if it's a joke, but it's kind of humorous, but it's very tied in to the way we accept Easter in our life. We don't really see what's the most important part. Sometimes we're caught up with other things. There's another joke, has nothing to do with this readings, but I like it. I may have shared it with you too before. There was a robber. I'm just thinking of it now. There was a robber who snuck in a person's house, and he's getting through the house, and he's hearing this loud cry, this voice saying, "Come, Jesus! Come, Jesus! Come, Jesus!" He walks in the room and he sees a parrot in a cage, and the parrot's screaming out, "Come, Jesus! Come, Jesus!" He walks up to the parrot and goes, "I don't know who your owner is, but he's got to be goofy to be teaching you prayers. And I don't know who he is." And the parrot looks at him and says, "Well, it's the same owner who named his Doberman Jesus." I think that's a pretty good joke too, if you think about it. But anyway, I want to ask David to please put up that photograph if you can. This photograph is probably about 40 years old. Many years ago, back in the 80s, I'm not sure when it was, about maybe, probably have to think about it, maybe 83, 84, during the Civil War in Nicaragua. I belonged to a group called Witness for Peace. And I know I shared this story with you before a few times, but we went down there for a month or so. And I remember we were having a difficult time. Matter of fact, one of our party had been kidnapped. But we would go to where the latest uh, violence took place. And we were in a city called Matigapa, and we were driving to a town called Bocan de Paiwas. And we were in the back of a cattle truck. And I remember all during the night, we were standing in the back of the truck. We couldn't sleep. And they were worried about landmines, and they were also being worried about being attacked by the Contras. But as the sun came up, we eventually arrived at the town of Bocan de Paiwas. And there was like no one there, but you could tell there was smoke in the air. It was definitely a big battle had happened. And we went to the local church, a little church there, and inside, and that's the picture, the photograph, if you can see it, were a group of women and children huddled together. And they pointed out to me that woman, and they said, "You see that woman there? They cut the throats of all her children." And I remember going up to her and speaking with her for a while. And she said, "Padre, se pueden cortar todos los flores, pero nunca destruir la primavera." They can cut down all the flowers, but they can never destroy the springtime. I said, "Senora, what do you mean by the springtime?" "Padre, my faith, my faith." And I said, what can I do for you? She said, La Santa Misa. And so we arranged for the next day we would have a mass, and we had it in a barn across like the river there. And crossing in the morning in these dugout canoes, we were getting shot at. We finally got up in the barn, everything seemed okay. And we began the mass, but during that mass, there would be an attack and she would be killed. I carry that picture with me all the time, and I have it framed in my little room close to here. And often, sometimes when I find life a little overwhelming, I'll look at that picture. And especially sometimes when I've lost someone very close to me, and particularly here in Haiti, we have lost 6 or 7 really close people. 2 of them are like sons to me. But when I see that photograph, I think, you know, I too have to believe in a springtime. I have to believe that someday I will see them again. And in many ways, when I think of my own parents, I love my parents. I really believe I will see them again. And whenever I say that, I feel that I am cooperating with God's grace of Easter, because we're Easter people. We're people of springtime. And springtime for us is where we feel life, and we're happy about life, and we feel fully human and fully alive. Springtime for us is when we bear all the complexities of life with empathy. Springtime for us is when we can transform hatred and bitterness and anger and jealousy, whatever else, and we transform it into love, into acceptance. Springtime for us is when we forgive and forget. Springtime for us, where we be. Springtime for us is the personal suffering we have kind of soothes our soul. It doesn't harden us, but actually softens our souls. Springtime for us is when we live gratitude, we praise and we're grateful. Springtime for us is when we don't curse, but we bless. We bless. We don't curse. Springtime for us is when we praise a person and not criticize that person. Springtime for us is when we can show gratitude to a person. Springtime for us, we wake up every day with 1,000 reasons for living. Springtime for us is the sounds of children excite us. Springtime for us is we can see beauty and deem it worth remembering. Springtime for us is when we can dance and sing for the right reasons. But sadly, I almost feel like we create our own winter time because we don't cooperate with God's grace of Easter. Sadly, we allow winter to become a part of us whenever we participate in hatred. We find ourselves in winter when we refuse to forgive or to be forgiven. We're in winter when we find ourselves criticizing others and not praising them or finding goodness in them. Winter for us is when we define who we are by what we're against and not for what we are for. Winter for us is allowing our suffering to kind of control our inner peace and harshen and make things harsh for us in a lot of ways. And we carry this whatever our sufferings may be. Winter for us is when we look at all the complexities of life and we don't have any empathy at all. We're in our springtime when we can say, yes, Lord. Yes, Lord. I believe you're there. And in the beautiful gospel today, Thomas looks at Jesus. The reason why a lot of people didn't recognize Jesus because he was so ordinary. A lot of times, painters and artists, they make Jesus as some sort of Superman with lights and stars and whatnot. He's just an ordinary carpenter. And he blended in. And Thomas looked at Jesus and he said, "My Lord and my God." The challenge for us, my good friends, is that every time we encounter another human being, if we focus just on our accidents, there's a chance that we will still be in winter. But if we look beyond the accidents and we can see a fellow human being made in the image and likeness of our loving God, and we can actually say, "My Lord and my God," we will begin to experience the springtime. We look at a homeless person. We can make all sorts of judgments about that person. We could be critical, or we can pull back a little bit, look beyond all the accidents, and say, "My Lord and my God." When I wake up in the morning, I wish I could do it every day. I don't. But some days when I feel God's grace, I may say something like, "Lord, yesterday, that man with that terrible odor, that man that was spitting on me, that man that was screaming and yelling at me because I didn't give him food, I turned my back on him. Today, if I meet him, I will look him in the eyes and say, 'My Lord and my God.' And I know by doing that, I will begin to experience a springtime." My good friends, we're living in a time of divisiveness and fragmentation. Our Lord God needs us to be Easter people. He needs us to be able to recognize the springtime and create that springtime. But we're not going to do it as long as we're putting people in categories. All this nonsense about, well, he's Democrat and he's Republican, he's for and he's against, he's this, he's that, all those things. Push all that aside. Push it all aside and say, he's a human being. He needs my respect. He needs my praise. He needs my encouragement. And by doing that, I think we're going to be able to build a better world. Today's gospel is very powerful. In our human encounters with people, people have to indeed walk away a little better and a little happier. And we can't be focusing on ourselves. The more we focus on ourselves, the more we create that winter. The more we come out of ourselves and look at others and even kind of forget about our own aches and pains, we're going to become more alive, more human, and certainly we'll experience that springtime. And so we are a part of that group that huddled in that room out of fear. But we shouldn't have fear anymore. We should wake up every day, as I said, with 1,000 reasons for living. We should be able to stand on our own 2 feet and see the world as it truly is. All that's good and all that's evil, all that's beautiful and all that's ugly, and say, "Lord, I know you're with me. Stay with me." And by doing that, we are really creating a springtime and we're really living the Easter. We're Easter people. So I pray for all of you. I pray that God will give you the grace you need to create your own personal springtime. I pray that when you talk about your loved ones who died, you say, "I will see them again. I will see them again." I'll pray that you look at life and be gentle and be at peace with yourself. Let's make this a good week. Let's pray real hard that somehow here in Haiti, things will get a little bit better. Pray for our work and pray for all the good work that all our staff do, and pray for their safety. And also, please, I haven't even mentioned my good friend Doug. He was here last week. We couldn't have a mass last Easter, but he's okay. But it's right now he's involved in a appeal of some sort. So anyway, God bless you. God love you. And may you live forever. And may you always be in the springtime.